Campus Guru, and this series I'm gonna talk about SAP security tips, and I think I'm gonna have multiple playlists. I think the first playlist we had was for beginner courses, which I'm gonna keep adding more. So please feel free to add your comments, your feedback, and if you wanna reach out to us, you can reach out to on Twitter or at India Campus Guru, or you can always add your comments on the YouTube channel, which is India Campus Guru. So welcome again, and let's begin. So I guess if I talk about the first number tip number one for SAP security is to know your SAP user administration T codes, which is SU01 for single user administration and SU10 for multiple user administration. So that's first two T codes you should know if you're starting your career in SAP security, and if you're gonna try to crack an interview as a fresher or maybe as a beginner resource. Okay, so SU01, SU10, make sure you do practice a lot. If you have access to SAP system, make sure you know end to end for these two courses, like what you will do and SU01 in different tabs. And if you have questions, you can always refer back to the courses I have around these T codes. Okay. Talking about user administration, continuing on that, you have to know USR02 table. I think that table is something you would be there. I think entire time. If you are a a experienced resource, even then also you will go there. But if you are just like a fresher or just starting your career, I think yeah, you would be in that table quite often. So know that table USR02. Know what all details you have in that table for user, including last logon and user group. Okay. And the next one, I would say the next table you should know is AGR underscore users, which is again one of the table you would be going quite often. And this gives you, okay, if I have a user, what all roles the user has assigned to. Okay, so again, this is the first tip I would say, which I'm gonna just say, make sure you know these T codes and tables. Going to second tip. Okay, so we talk about user, we talk about how do you create user, how do you assign role. Then the next question comes when you're supporting a project or a customer. How do you troubleshoot if a user is having a authorization issues, right? How do you trace for any authorization issues? So the first T code which you need is like is your biggest, I would say, biggest help. Like this is the I would say best friend of a security personnel, SU53. So SU53 is something you have to ask your user to run immediately after they have some authorization issues. Like if they get an error saying you cannot do this or you're not authorized to do something, that's the first T code you're gonna ask. Could you please run SU53 immediately after you get the authorization error? And you have to ask them to expand whatever they see and then send it over to you, or share with you, so that you know what all authorization object or what all things you need to add or provide that user. So that's your, I would say, one of the best friend you would have in your career as SAP security. Okay, the next one would be, again, as I said, SC53, I would have a detailed session on that, but sometimes it doesn't help you because the user maybe have clicked on some other screen, or maybe it's just capturing the false positive, it's not capturing the real authorization issues. So in that case, you have to go beyond SC53. You have to actually use ST01 uh, for single user administration, or there's an advanced T code called ST auth trace. There's new one coming up which is called ST user trace, but I would like to say limit with your work or your knowledge to ST01, ST auth trace, and know what all difference between these two T codes are. Like when which case you would use ST01, or which case you would use ST auth trace, or which one T code is better than each other, right? My recommendation is to use ST auth trace, and if you want to know why, I think I can put another video or lecture on that as well. But I think if you know how SAP works, there can be different application servers, and also I'm just giving a hint to you. But yeah, I can probably get another video on just difference between ST01 and ST auth trace. But again, knowing these T codes, knowing what all, how you will enable ST01 trace, how you will enable trace for a user in ST auth trace is pretty important for you. So that's something you have to know. Okay. And yeah, I think these are the way I would say to find out what is missing from authorization perspective for a user, because that's the one thing you're gonna get while working on a project. Like, you have to trace issues, you have to find out, you have to fix production issues, right? So make sure you do a lot of practice there. And as I said, I probably would be putting some other videos just going deep in those T codes. Okay. My next tip, number three, would be just knowing, I think, how SAP T code and how authorization objects and fields and how a T code is created, how the T code is mapped to authorization object, and how a authorization object is giving or controlling access on a particular field. Okay, so the T codes we are talking right now is SC21, which gives you authorization object and how it maps to different field and activities. So make sure you're familiar with the T code. uh, you maybe not have to go deep there, but at least understand what SE21 does, and as a security personnel what you would be doing there, or how this T code can help you. Okay. And the second T code would be SE93. Again, this is a T code, how a custom T code is created, or you can even see the standard T codes and how whether it's a map to a program or it's just a T code on a table. But that's the T code. SE93 is the T code where a mapper would be going and creating a T code. But I think even from security perspective, this is a really good T code where you just want to go and suppose somebody say I need access to some T code like VA01 or SE01, right? You can go and see, okay, which program is mapped to, right? And if you are a coder, I'm not a coder, but if you are a coder and you understand the coding language, I think it does give you, okay, which program I have to go deep into and see what the T code is actually doing or performing, right? So in that sense, it does help us, give us more visibility and knowing that T code end to end. Okay. The third T code probably I would be saying would be helpful for us would be SE24. I think it's more important than SE21, SE93, but I kind of had it on the bottom. This is where the T codes are mapped to authorization objects, right? So if you are building a role, this is being used to populate authorization object when you add a T code into that role. So again, I'm just trying to tell you the tips here. I'm not gonna go deep here, but try to understand what SE24 does and how it impacts your role creation, right? And what you would be doing there as a security person. Like, do you have to update SE24 as a security person or not? If you do, then how it impacts your role, right? And probably this is a very important topic, and probably I can have a separate video on that as well. But just knowing these three T codes, I think, is gonna help you to start your journey as a SAP security. And I think make sure you are ready and you are able to quickly resolve issues and all. Okay. So make sure, I think, you practice these T codes. You go to PFCG, you create roles, you see what you have in SE24 for the T code, and just try to relate how SE24 is impacting your PFCG role creation. Okay. Going to next, tip number four would be just know PFCG. I think just know there's another T code where you would be there all the time. Like for any role administration, role changing, creating a new role or updating a role, adding a T code. This is the T code you would be running a lot. So know PFCG end to end. Know how you can create a role. Know how you can add T code. How you can generate it. Whether there are different modes like going to expert mode and all, and just knowing, okay, what type of roles you can have. Like we have role called master or derive, or they are also called parent child role. Just understand what master role is or what derive role is, and in which case you would go with master derive role, right? And again, composite role, probably we don't see that often now, but also understand what composite role is, and difference between composite and single role, right? And if I don't expect you to be an expert on GRC and knowing those things, but so let's limit with us just knowing master role, derive role. They're also called parent and child role, but understand how they are and what all things you will maintain in master and what all things you will maintain in derive role. Okay. And again, this is a very important topic, and probably, as I said, I may do another video on that. No org values, like there's something called organization values like a company code, plant, and sales org. What all those org values are, and how and where you will maintain those values in your role, and which role, whether you will maintain org values in master role or you will maintain in derived role. That's very very important question, even for if you're going for a interview for SAP security. Okay, and I guess yeah, knowing how you can push changes from master to derived roles. And maybe something you can try as a tip, like try to maintain org values in both the roles and see the difference, like if you maintain org values in master role and if you maintain in derived role, and if you push the values from master to derived role, what you see after that, right? So I think practice practice practice, that's how you're gonna learn. So you have to go deep in these T codes, you have to go deep in understanding how these roles work and how they perform. Okay, I think next tip, I have few tables here. Again, I think we cover a few tables in the first tip, but they are like tables focus on user and the role, right? So AGI users, we already talked about that. And there's a table called AGI underscore define, which gives mapping of master versus derived role mapping. That's pretty important table as well. If you have master, derived, or parent child roles in your landscape, okay. The other very important table would be AGR underscore 1251 and 1252. I think knowing the difference between these two, what all values you will see in AGR underscore 1251 and what you will see in AGR underscore 1252 is really important. So again, try to go deep there, just open those tables, put your roles there, and see what you see there. Okay. I guess that's all for today. That's all for the first lecture or the first video around tips. I'm gonna put more tips around it. Again, as I said, I'm trying to have these videos thinking from very basic, or the someone who's starting or who's like a 2 year, less than 2 year experience guy. So if you're experienced, I think you will already know these T codes and tips. But this is really gonna help you if you're trying to start your career in an SAP security. So do like and comment and subscribe to our channel. You can always reach out to at India Campus Guru on Twitter. And yeah, I think keep learning and keep going. Bye, thank you.